It is not Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's time for another First Thoughts and Initial Impressions Epic 7 video. This one will be on Tori, the newest limited character that was just shown this morning earlier over on YouTube. As with all my impressions videos, I give you my 2 cents on the character. Do I think she's good? Where would I play her? What sorts of equipment sets and artifacts would I play her on? All that stuff you've come to expect from me in a First Thoughts and Initial Impressions video. Anyways, without any further ado, let's take a look now at Tori's S3 animation.
You've got this, Tori. So nervous. I've prepared a gift for all of you. I hope you like it. I can do anything too, you know.
This skill 3 animation, honestly, is a swing and a miss for me. I think that's 3 strikes in a row, which is pretty uncharacteristic for the art department for Epic 7. I usually feel like they hard carry this game, but we just had New Kid Auden, which the skill 3 felt like it was missing animation frames. Then we had Lone Wolf Payra, where half of the animation was essentially computer-generated images, along with just essentially her stretching and not really much else. And now we have Tori's animation, which compositionally is pretty good, but it feels like, again, it's missing animation frames. I know animation is really expensive, but it feels like we're cutting corners at a time where I don't really think we can afford to be doing so. So for me, I'm not really a super big fan of this skill 3. Just like I'm in general not a fan of this character's actual design. And I've said it multiple times on stream. In fact, I said that the funniest thing that could happen was for this character to get a voiceover artist in its English dub that I really respect to kind of make me go like, are you serious right now? Like, it's a character I don't like, but you gave it a VA that I actually like in an attempt to make me like the character. Lo and behold, here I am recording this at like 5:30 in the morning, and in the English dub of Epic 7, Tori is voiced by Melissa Fawn. For most of you watching this video, she's going to be the English dub voice of Silverwolf in Honkai Star Rail. You may also recognize her as Medusa from the Fate franchise, and she's also the voice of Radical Edward from one of my favorite anime of all time, Cowboy Bebop. One final aside, yes, I know the introduction is long. We'll get to the stats and skills in just a moment, but in case you were unaware, Melissa recently lost her home due to the fires that have taken over California. If you are so inclined, you want to help get her back on her feet, there has been a fundraiser set up. I will link it down in this video's description. Anyways, moving on to Tori's stats, she is a fire thief of the Leo Zodiac symbol, which means she shares a stat line with Kisei, Vildred, Arbiter Vildred, and Remnant Violet. Taking a closer look at her stats, she has 1,283 attack, 522 defense, 5,138 health, 116 speed, 23% critical hit chance, 150% critical hit damage, and no starting effectiveness or effect resistance. Her imprints are attack percentage to the team, and of course, because it's a limited, critical hit chance is going to be the self-imprint because, well, they need to make sure that you pull for multiple copies. Anyways, before we talk about the character, let's go over the kit together so that way we're all on the same page. Starting with Tori's skill 2 passive, Delusional Runway. Buffs granted to Tori are applied as undispellable. When attacked, damage suffered in one attack does not exceed 70%, down to 51% of Tori's maximum health depending on Malagora. At the start of the turn, has a 20% chance for each buff granted to Tori to grant her Cascade. Cascade can only be granted once every 2 turns. In case you forgot what Cascade is, it was a buff previously only available through Dragon King Sharoon. It is an undispellable buff that says after attacking, deals 2,500 fixed damage per target, dispelled after attacking. Moving on to Tori's skill 3, it is Heart over Grace. You acquire 3 souls upon use, and it has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown depending on Malagora. It is a non-attack skill that throws chocolates filled with heartfelt sentiments, granting increased attack and speed to all allies for 3 turns. Grants an extra turn to Tori. Tori's basic attack skill is Overreaction. Attacks the enemy by whipping a ribbon and grants a barrier to Tori for 1 turn. Barrier strength increases proportional to Tori's attack. Soulburn effect for the cost of 20 souls greatly increases the damage dealt and does not trigger a dual attack. When Tori is granted Cascade, does not cost any souls to activate this Soulburn. Now that we know the kit, let's talk about the character. If it wasn't immediately obvious from the skill overview, Delusional Runway is going to be the make or break skill for this character. Buffs granted to Tori being undispellable is certainly something I didn't have on my bingo card, and is definitely unexplored design space for heroes in Epic 7. Perhaps design space we were better off not exploring, but unexplored design space nonetheless. Right off the bat, I can tell you that immunity is going to be a must when building this character. Until Tori takes a turn, you cannot stop her with debuffs whatsoever aside from killing her. This makes her passive a better version of the skill effect nullifier that New Moon Luna grants herself. This is probably also a good time to interject with Tori's artifact, which reads as follows. It increases the attack of the user by 10 to 20% depending on artifact level, and at the start of the battle grants a barrier equivalent to 50 to 100% of the attack of the user for 2 turns, again depending on artifact level. Now normally I save the artifact until the end of my analysis, but I think this one is worth bringing up early. The other half of the passive Delusional Runway is what the community commonly refers to as the cockroach passive, because it makes the character obnoxiously difficult to kill. You cannot one-shot this character. You need multiple hits in order to do so. And for those of you that don't know, these damage cannot exceed 51% of the caster's max health style passives, have incredible synergy with barriers. When attacked, the game will check Tori's maximum health, and if the damage exceeds 51% of whatever number is shown, that's it. No more damage. For example, if Tori has 10,000 health, she can't take more than 5,100 damage in a single instance. But what if she had a 5,000 health barrier on her? Well, then you would only take 100 damage because you can't deal more than 5,100 damage to the character without fixed or additional damage in one go. If you somehow give the character another barrier after that, she's unkillable. Since buffs applied to Tori are undispellable, having repeatable ways to give her a barrier makes her incredibly difficult to kill. You know, like her basic attack skill, which gives a repeatable barrier. Also, Fallen Cecilia is getting buffed in the same exact patch that this character releases in. Do you guys still not think that they design and buff all the characters at the same exact time? Anyways, Feat of Criticism is definitely one of the stronger artifacts that you can play on Tori because of the interaction with barriers, but I don't necessarily know if it's her best one. It's definitely worth considering always pairing her with a knight that wears Bastion of Pelusia. Bastion gives the backslot ally a barrier as well as immunity, which is obviously amazing with this character's passive. The barrier will also probably be larger than anything that you can get off of Feat of Criticism, barring a max limit broken copy, and not needing to build immunity opens up the possibility of a penetration set for more damage, or even Torrent if you want to get around Empyrean Illinav, while also lowering your own maximum HP to make it even more obnoxious to chew through any barriers that are on the character. It also opens up the possibility of not needing her own artifact and instead exploring other artifact options like, say, maybe Windrider. Goblet of Oath, which is Payra's artifact while not being ideal, does give you 100% uptime on all of her undispellable buffs from her skill 3, assuming you can actually wrap up the fight in a reasonable time frame. So, hey, that might be worth a shot, might be worth a look. Going back to the design space aspect, though, of undispellable buffs for this character, the one thing that worries me is how much playtesting the team has done with Tori. Heroes like Shooting Star Arcades can grant 3 turns of undispellable immortality to her, which, when built on a really dirt-slow Tori on something like Counter Set that gives her barriers, I could just kind of stall out games for what feels like an eternity. You'll get worse performance, but a similar effect also, by the way, pairing her with Abigail. I've talked about this before, but when it comes to testing a game, no matter how much manpower your testing team has, the player base will massively exceed the amount of man hours you put into testing within just a few hours or days of a character's release. It's for this reason that I always err on the side of caution when entering certain design spaces, because it could have disastrous results. Somebody, somewhere, looking at you, Jello, will probably figure out some setup with this passive that makes the character absolutely infuriating to play against or just downright broken. And if it's not now, you have to be aware of every single character with buffs that you design and release in the future for fear that it could break Tori. Hence my comment about being design space that we may have been better off not actually exploring. every time you design a character with buffs in the future, you gotta double check with Tori to see if it breaks the game. Notice, by the way, how I haven't even talked about the character's skill 3 or skill 1 up until this point. It's just been the passive. They're fine skills for sure. Skill 3 is just a generically good buff skill for an offense-oriented unit, and skill 1 is a repeatable barrier. The free soul burn on skill 1, along with Cascade, while not having built-in penetration on a limited unit, makes me think that the character just probably one-shots most things. It's 2025, and this is just standard power creep in Epic 7 at this point. In short, wait for the multipliers to see how good she actually is, but she's probably pretty good. As for builds, I think Lifesteal as a set appeals to me the most because it's basically tried and true at this point. Anyone who's played the game for a long enough time probably remembers how annoying Tempest Cern on a Lifesteal set paired with Fallen Cecilia and her barriers can actually be for things like Guild War defense. Destruction or speed with good enough stats seem like the go-to if all you care about is hitting really large numbers. And counter seems like it could be a fun meme since her basic attack grants barriers, especially if you're one of those evil bastards that pairs her with immortality somehow. Immunity still feels like the go-to 2-piece set in most situations, unless, like I talked about, you pair her with a knight on Bastion of Perlucia. In that case, penetration set or torrent set could be on the menu depending on your preferences. To wrap up the video, Tori is definitely a character you should pull for because, well, you don't skip limited units in Epic 7. The passive skill, of course, means she's also a hero that has a potential to be the next broken, headache-inducing hero this side of Afternoon Soak Flan. I just hope you're ready to play a lot of heroes that grant unbuffable that can survive long enough to kind of shoot their shot once her undispellable immunity is out, or just play a lot of fixed / additional damage heroes like, knights on 3F, things on Rocket Punch, things like that, the standard fare you're used to. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Tori. Let me know how you feel about the character in the comment section below. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next one. Later now.